Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Code Like a Professional, Code Etiquette in Game Development. My name is Angie Lu, your MC for today's webinar. To start off, we will be having a short prayer to guide us in this afternoon. Thank you.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatang putok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng patawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magtitindig. Luman ang araw ng walhagin pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
To officially start our program, our webinar advisor, Dr. Arvin de la Cruz, will say a few words.
Good afternoon to all of you, and I would like to welcome everybody for this webinar series of my class in CPE Field Trip and Seminar. So I hope that you would be you will learn a lot of things in the topic that the speaker would be sharing later on, and please try to remember our hashtag for today, hashtag GSReoGoal, hashtag CPE Webinar Series 2022, hashtag Aral Diwa Program 2022, and hashtag SED 2022. So if you want to have your selfie with the broadcast of our YouTube and FB streaming, you could share it in your Facebook page and just connect us with this hashtag. Has posted in the chat room. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this webinar for today. Back to you, Angelu.
Thank you for that very informative speech, Doc A. Mm. I hope everybody is very excited for today's topic. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on and in our Zoom meeting, our organizers will collect them so we can ask them on our question and a portion. Okay, so let's start. Our speaker for today is a senior game developer lead in Co-ops Philippine Corporation. I'm sure most of you have played a few of their apps just like Snake.io, Stacky Bird, and Pictoword. I guess everyone. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our speaker of the day. He is Bachelor of Science in Electronics Communications Engineer. He has also been in the industry for 10 years, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeffrey Sansibuche.
All right. Hi, good
Good
good afternoon,
afternoon
Angelo.
po.
Yeah, we will be shifting our schedule first, our program. So yeah, I'll be giving company talk first, and
Okay
then
po.
I'll introduce Sir Jeffrey Sansebuche after this.
Okay po. Thank you.
So okay, so again, good afternoon, and
Good
thank
afternoon.
you, Doc A and PUP Computer Engineering Department for inviting us for this webinar. And before the webinar starts, I would like to introduce our company first, QApps, and here is what you need to know about us. Okay, so QApps, we have this slogan also: make games you want to show our friends. So okay, let's dig in. All right, so who are we? Guaps is the oldest full indie mobile game design and development studio in the Philippines. And we have actually started 2008 when the first SDK in Apple's already started. And after a year, then Guaps Philippines was established. So we are considered as the full or the oldest full indie mobile game company because everything that we do in here belongs to our company. So basically, we don't do games or we don't do projects for other people. And though our clients are those who downloaded our games on Play Store, App Store, and the Windows Phone. So far, we have already over 100 million downloads across iOS, Android, and the Windows Phone platform. So probably, as what Angelo mentioned earlier, you might have already played some of our games already. Okay, so what do we do? Of course, games, and more games. So far, we're just focused on mobile games. And here is the sample video, or this is the video of some of the games we have published already. So it might not be updated because we released this video just last year. So oops, sorry. I think I didn't share my screen. Can you see it now? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, sorry for the technical error earlier. let's continue. Okay, so you might still be wondering who are we, and all the other information I presented is not enough. So here's an article from E27 saying young but not noobs, the 8 startups putting Asia on the online gaming map. And there's another article from CNN Life, made in the Philippines, 5 world-class mobile games developed by Pinoys. And let's go to a local news website. So GMA News Online says Pinoy game developers earn global acclaim for educational word game. Ayan. So you might be asking also why join apps like after the talk, and then there's a spark in you and say, or you want to join apps after the talk. So here are the reasons why. It's because we want you to make big things with us. And together, let's push the software industry forward, specifically the Philippine software industry forward. So we want to make things or changes that when you mention Philippines to other country, they would first think of games, or like Philippines has talent for games. And just like this logo, when you see this logo, of course, you would think first of Chicken Joy. And other brands here, you know where they're famous for. And we want that when our logo is being showed also, then you will think of games. And we also have an article here from Entrepreneur. So Filipino app developers compete with world's best. So they said we're poised to be the next Nintendo of the Philippines. And we also dream to become even bigger, such as these brands. And we work hard to achieve this because we want you to make our country proud. So next time when you like mingle with other friends from other countries, they would think like Philippines is not just for beautiful beaches, but Philippines can also make great games through apps. And some of the positions that we have for apps. So we have several positions under dev team, our PM team, our team, marketing team, and HR team. So we also have internships available. I'll discuss it to you later if we still have time. And yeah, I won't hold you any longer from listening or to get the materials from Sir Jeff or from our speaker. So it will just be a short introduction to the hiring. So to get updates about us, you can also like our Facebook page, Kuaps Philippines, Kuaps Games, and on Twitter, Kuaps. So you can also find our hiring in jobs180.com/kuapsph. Okay, so that's on my side. I hope you learn about us, and yeah, let's learn more with Sir Jeff's topic. Okay. All right, Sir Jeff, take it away.
Hello.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Please wait. Uh, okay. Yeah, hello. Good afternoon. So, please wait. Uh, mm, please wait. Okay, I'll just share my desktop. Hmm. Okay, please wait. I really haven't used Zoom before. I have to restart. Please wait.
Hello, guys. So Sir Jeff will just restart the Zoom application. So yeah. Do you have any question before we start with his talk or anything? Or may I know like what's your expectation for this talk, and especially after you got all the pub mats? So what do you expect to get from this talk?
Hello. Sorry. Okay. So, okay. So, okay. So, hello. Okay. So, oh, you see. Is my slides on already?
Yes po.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So I assume we are all programmers in here, right? Okay. So does anyone know how to gauge our code quality or how to measure the our code quality? Okay, so let's start. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this comic. Yeah, so this is the only valid measurement of code quality. So yeah, so WTFs per minute. Yeah, so if you have good code, yeah, so less WTF, and yeah, so bad code, lots of this. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're doing this when you are reading your code. So yeah, so okay, so let's start. Okay, so just to clarify the topic, yeah, so this is writing solid code. So this is not um only for the game developers. This will also work for non-game devs. So this is for everyone. Okay, so again, yeah, so I'm Jeff. Yeah, so senior game developer at Co-ops. Yeah, so let's start. Right. So anyone knows about single solid principles? Okay, so yeah. Okay, so let's start. So solid responsibility or solid principles are actually is actually an acronym for S single responsibility principle, O open close principle, L discover substitution principle, I interface segregation principle, and dependency inversion principle. So when we write code, we should um, follow these principles. So our code will become maintainable, readable, and even scalable. Yep. So, okay, so let's start with the single responsibility principle. Okay, so here's a meme for you. Yeah, so the single responsibility principle, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay, so what does it mean? Okay, so single responsibility principle means that a class, an object, method, etc., should only have one reason to change. It should only have one purpose, and it should only have one reason for failure. Okay, so if your classes are not like that, then you are not following the single responsibility principle. Okay, so here's an example. Yeah, so let's say, yeah, student. So all of us here are student. Yeah, so the student has name, also has knowledge and preferences for courses and work experience. Yeah, so you as a student, you can study and you can enlist for course. And for some of us who are working students, they can also work and sign contracts. Okay, so when you look at this class, so this looks okay, but what if we add, let's say, a hobby? So a student has a hobby, so we will add like public void do hobby. What if we added more functionalities to the student, right? So the student class here does many things. So in this case, we have three things. So it has the information about yourself, so your name, so maybe your address, etc. And then you also know some functionalities for a student, so study and list. And for employee, you have work and sign contracts. Yep. So we have to fix this by doing this. So we will just create more classes. Okay, so for the person, yeah, so the person will contain the person's info, so the name for our example. And for the student, it only knows how to study and to enlist for courses. And our employee knows how to work, sign contracts. Yep. And then our student and employee now has a dependency to the person. So the student knows its own person, right? Yeah. So with this, with following the single responsibility principle, we can now isolate functionalities. Yeah, and we can, let's say, we need to add more class types, like maybe, yeah, the one with hobby. So maybe, like say, person with hobby or something like that. Yeah, and then you can add the functionality and then maybe reference a person. Yep. So for the single responsibility principle, so we should respect SRP all the time because it will make our work easier. Yeah, so we can split up work. Like maybe when you work with a team, like, okay, one person will work on the student part, one person will work on the employee part. They really don't they really they don't have to know about students implementation and employees implementations. Yeah, so that's it for the single responsibility principle. So if you have question, yeah, so just ask it later after the talk. Yeah, and then open close principle. Yeah, here's another meme. So brain surgery is not necessary when putting on a hat. So it means that we wanted to add new functionalities like putting on a hat. So but you don't have to have a brain surgery to do that. Okay. So open close principle. Software entities should be open for extension but closed for modification. So it means that for an example, for the beam example, we just added a functionality to wear a hat. So we will just need to add a function in our code that put on a hat and then that just give a hat and then it will just work. So you don't need to change other code, well, unless it has bug. Okay, so here's another example for you. So let's say we have a file class and then we also have a progress class. And in the progress, we will just show a progress bar, for example. Yep. So the value is just the file sent times 100 divided by the length. So you will know how many percent have you already downloaded. Okay. So, but what if there's a new requirement like our producer wants us to have a music player in our app. And since we already have the progress class, we can use it, but it accepts file class. So it will not work unless you make the music class a file class, right? So, well, that's just a first solution, another solution. So, okay, so one solution is take advantage of the dynamic nature of some programming languages. So let's say JavaScript, Objective-C. Yeah, so they are dynamic, so they really don't, they are not static type programming languages. So you just have to add the length and the sent, and it will just work. So it doesn't really know, or it doesn't really have to, um, or you don't have to change anything actually. Yeah, so the progress will just accept anything that has length and sent fields. But try not to do this because it will just make your code messy and hard to debug. And here's another solution. Use template method design pattern. So basically this is just a design pattern which uses an abstract superclasses. So so we will create a measurable class, and then the file and the music will inherit from it. Now the progress class will just use the measurable file. So anything that is measurable will work. Okay. So so this is okay solution, but the solution 3 is the one that I want you to really use as much as possible. Yeah, so this is the strategy design pattern. So it's almost the same as the previous one, the template the template design pattern. The only difference is that instead of abstract classes, you will use interfaces. Okay, so here's another, yeah, so here's the solution. Yeah, so create an interface, I measurable, and then the file and the music now implements the interface. So the file and the music do not inherit from measurable class. They just implement the I measurable interface. So the file can inherit from anything, and then but just have to implement the interface. And yeah, and then now the progress will just use the interface instead of the abstract class, and it will just work. Yeah. So yeah, so final thoughts for this, modifiers will be few and easy. And yeah, open close principle will save us a lot of time, because let's say for now we only have the file or file download and the music player. But what if we wanted to add, let's say, health bar, for example? Yeah, so we can just add the iMeasurable interface to the health bar and just pass it to the progress, and it will just work. You don't need to have to change the implementation of the progress bar to make it work. All right, and then let's call substitution principle. Yeah. So if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, but needs batteries, you probably have the wrong abstraction. Yeah. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that subtypes must be substitutable for their base type. Right? So if we go back to the open close principle, we already tried this one for the solution 2. So we created a base class, and then just just inherit from it. Yeah, and then the progress will just work. So that should also be the case for our classes or our objects. All right, so here's an example. So we have a rectangle and a square. So rectangle, yeah, so it has width and height, and a square is also a special rectangle. It also has a width and height. It's just that the width and height must be equal, right? So for the rectangle, if we set the width, okay, we set the width, and the height, we set the height. And then for the area is width times height. So for the square, if we set the width, since they should have, or it must have the same width and height, so we have to set the width and the height if we set the width. And for the height, same thing. So they should be equal. Okay. So now let's test our code. So let's create a rectangle, and then we verify the area of the rectangle and see if it will pass. So for the rectangle, create a rectangle, verify area is, we set the width to 4 and set the height to 5, and then the area is 4 times 5, 20. And then, so yeah, so it's okay. And then how about the square? So we set the height, the width to 4, and then the height to 5. But since they should have equal sides, so it will be 5 times 5, so 25. So this is wrong. Okay, so this scope substitution means says that they should work as their or the derived types should work as their super types. Okay, so it means that a square is not a rectangle in the code. Okay. Okay, so the solution for this is, okay, let's create a shape class, and then yeah, so it has area or get area method. And then for the rectangle, okay, so we derive from shape, and then we have the width and height. Okay, so the area is width times height, and then for the square, we only have length. There's length, and then the area now is length times length. Okay. So here's another test. Okay, so we just um, created a rectangle and a square, and then just verify the areas if they are correct. So this will work. Okay. So OOP. So I'm sure we are all familiar with OOP. It's not just about mapping real life objects. So we should always use abstraction. So there. So OOP actually is more on concepts than replicating real objects one is to one. Okay. So second to the last, interface segregation principle. Interface, you want me to plug this in where? Okay. Yeah, so clients should not be forced to depend on interfaces they do not use. Okay, so here's a remote TV or TV remote. Okay, so the remote can turn the TV on and off, change the channel, the volume, and many more. So how about we make or we use the TV remote as an AC remote? Yeah, so the AC remote, it also has the power, so like the TV remote. And then for the temp up and down, maybe we can use the volume, right? And then the other buttons, yeah, we can map it to different buttons of the TVs. Okay? Yeah, so but if our class or like our system knows the TV remote or the remote itself, it will know more things like for the AC. Let's say you have an AC system, and then you use the remote or the TV remote. So if your code like or if your system knows the TV remote, it will also know the channels, the volume, the page, the pass forward, etc. So it shouldn't be like that. Right? So interface is only a blueprint. So it doesn't. So what you need to know what you what you need to pass. Actually, so let's say you have a vehicle. So the vehicle can start the engine, accelerate, brake, there's the lights on, off, signal left, right, change gear. So everything that you can do in a vehicle. So this is correct. So okay, and then you have now a car, which is a vehicle. Okay. So now let's say you have a highway and the highway knows the vehicles. And then let's say for the highway, yeah, so we have a function called make everyone accelerate. Okay, so this will work because our vehicle knows accelerate, right? The only complication is that it also knows how to turn the lights on, to change gear, to play the radio, eject CD, which the highway doesn't care about, right? So we have to split our interfaces. Yeah, so we now have speed control, radio player, interfaces. Yeah, so for the car, it will implement the speed control in the radio player. And then maybe you have another car which only has speed control with, so it doesn't have radio player. right? Yeah. So and our highway class will change to this. Yeah. So only speed control, and then yeah. So in our code, yeah. So the vehicle only knows the speed control methods or functions. Yeah. So the play radio does not exist anymore. Okay. So respect our clients, make our respect our clients. So the client here is the highway. Okay. And then if we separate or segregate our interfaces, it will make our code better, because like our clients, it only needs some things, not everything. Yeah, so it will also help reduce misuse of methods, because for example, this highway, since in our first implementation, it knows the iVehicle, so maybe the the developer will call the vehicle that play radio, which shouldn't be the case, but he can. Yeah. All right. So this is the last one. So this is the dependency inversion principle. Would you solder a lamp directly to the electrical wiring in a wall? Okay. So here's the definition. High-level modules should not depend on low-level modules. They should both depend on abstractions. Abstractions should not depend on details, and details should depend upon abstraction. Excuse me. So, is it clear? Yeah. Yeah, so this is the most confusing one, but actually it only means that we use abstraction. So abstract classes or interfaces. That's it. So here as an example, we have a swordsman. So our swordsman has health, name, and a sword. Yeah, so since the swordsman knows how to wield a sword, so it creates his own sword. And then for the attack code, whatever is that code. Okay. Yeah, so right now we wanted to add new sorry for the formatting. Yeah, we need to add more sword, right? So this will not work, or the first one will not work. So let's say, yeah, so our sword, yeah, so we have Gunblade, Buster Sword, Masamune as our sword, and our attack code will now be something like this. If the sword is a Gunblade, use Renzokuken. If the sword is Buster Sword, use Omni Slash. If the sword is Masamune, use Octa Slash. Let's say we add 1,000 more sword, and your code will just break. And also remember, we also have the open close principle, that our code should be open for extension and closed for modification. But in our case, we are always modifying the attack method, which is not respecting the open close principle. Right? Yeah. So to fix that, we will use the polymorphism. And yeah, so you can also look at the risk of substitution. So we now have a sword, and we now have this function called special move. Okay, so the swordsman, we will pass a sword, and then on attack, we'll just call the special move. Yeah, so whatever the special move code is, it will just be executed. So for the gun blade, the special mode code would be the Rensokuken. Buster Sword will be the Omni Slash, and then Masamune will do the Octa Slash. Right? And then, yeah, so, oops. Yeah, so we now introduce new requirements. So let's say if there's no sword, the swordsman will attack or will punch. Right? So we can fix it by this, like if there's no sword, punch, right? But what if, let's say, if there's no sword and let's say the swordsman has no arms for some reason, it will kick. So you will add more and more conditions here. So if if the sword is null, and then you will also check if has no hands, etc. Right? So it will also get messy. Okay. So yeah, so we will do the inversion. So introduce the abstraction. Right? So sword, select that, and then we will create a weapon class. Okay, so the weapon has damage and special move, like our sword. Right? And then now we can create a fist and then um, inherit from the weapon. So the fist is now a weapon, right? Yeah. So with that, we can just pass a weapon and then weapon, special move. Yeah. So we can just um, use fist as a weapon, gun, bow, etc. So your swordsman now can also wield other other weapon. Yeah, so it can use a gun, can use a bow, it can use anything that is called weapon. Okay. Okay, but we still need to improve that because let's say we added a new requirement again. And that requirement is that, let's say you have a health bar, your character or the swordsman has a health bar, and then for some reason, our designers want us to use the health bar as a weapon, right? So the health bar is not a weapon, it's a UI element. So with that requirement, so we will create an interface called iEquipable. So anything that can be equipped, right? So now our swordsman can equip anything. So it can be fist, bow, gun, potion, health bar, a tree, a stone, whatever you can think of. Okay, so but I'm not saying that this is how you should really write this problem. Just in case if your designer wants to have an a health bar that acts as a weapon and or a tree which acts as a weapon. It's just that I'm saying that this is possible now. Okay. Okay. So for the final thoughts of this um, dependency inversion, so it's almost forced us to respect OCP. So like what I mentioned, when we have to change the attack code if we add more sword, and it also allows us to separate responsibilities. So the sword knows only sword, yeah, or and this, yeah, and then it makes us correctly use subtypes, right? So before we just accept sword, and then we now want to use fees, and then and then we wanted to use AP, for example. Yeah, and then yeah, so it also offer us the opportunity to segregate our interfaces because abstraction. And I think that's it for me. And if you wanted more in-depth um in-depth knowledge about the solid principles, you may read Clean Code by Robert Martin. Yeah, so even bad code can function, but if code isn't clean, it can bring development organization to its knees. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. So yeah, hope you learned something from that.
Thank you, Mr. Sansibuchi. I'm sure everybody has learned a great deal of knowledge today. We will move we will be moving on with our question and a portion. And we have here a few questions for our attendees, to our dear participants. If you still have questions, don't forget to comment them or chat in our Zoom meeting. Guys, you can leave your questions here in the chat. Guys. Ayan. From ano to? Section 5, Jericho Clemente. When coding, we want to abstract it so that we do not have to repeat the same code. Keep it dry and at the same time make it easier to maintain. However, over abstracting can, instead of making code maintainable, make it hard for other developers to understand it. Do you have any tips on determining whether we are over abstracting code?
Yes, yeah. So I think this is actually a good question. Yep. So wait. We want to abstract it. Okay. However, abstracting can instead, yep. So this is correct also. Do you have any tips on determining whether we are over abstracting the code? So let's say, okay, so I think what you can do here is that just design your system first, like maybe um, write it on a board or create diagrams so you can know which things to reuse or how you will wire things up, because sometimes you really don't need um to do the abstraction. Yeah, sometimes you need, sometimes you don't, but for example, you can just create, for now you can just create a concrete class, right? And then this concrete class, it will just evolve to something monolithic class. So okay, so let's say for example we have a player class. So the player can move, it knows the score, it knows everything. And then, since we already have the move class, and then we added an NPC object, we now have to create or start creating the move code separated from the player code or from the player class. So you don't have to actually start abstracting or start the abstraction when you start coding. Just do it simple, write your code as simple as possible, and when the requirements ask you to do certain things, like for our example, it's the NPC, then it's the time you can move it to elsewhere. So, yep, I think that's it. Ano po ang common na naming convention sa mga variables and or functions sa game dev programming? Okay, so naming conventions ng mga variables. So ito ay depende sa kung ano yung language, for example. So dun sa example ko, C# siya. So nag-follow lang ako doon sa convention. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so doon sa examples natin, nag-follow lang ako doon sa standards na binigay ng Microsoft.NET. Pero doon sa .NET kasi wala silang binigay na exact na convention para sa private. So doon sa nakita niyo sa private ko na mga code is underscore tapos yung variables nila. Ayun. So basta sundin nyo lang yung kung ano yung standard and then you're good to go. Ang problema lang dito, syempre, kapag kunwari may ibang code kayo na ginamit. So minsan yung code nila is iba yung standard kaysa sa inyo. So hangga't maaari, gawin nyo lang consistent. Tapos kung kung meron ng na-set na standard yung project na hindi sumusunod, kunwari dito, hindi sumunod siya sa .NET, meron siyang sariling convention. Then, sundin nyo na lang yung na-establish na convention ng project para yung code nyo magkakamuka. Yun. So, basta yun. Sundin nyo lang yung kung ano yung nasusulat sa standards. Kung wala, kung ano yung na-establish nyo.
May other questions pa po ba? I think, meron pong nagtatanong. In terms of secure coding, any recommended materials?
Anong klaseng security yung hinahanap mo? I mean like security, like hindi ka mahahack or secured yung code mo para hindi siya masira or something like that?
May question po from
Security in
Rigel.
terms of attack. Okay, so in terms of attack, kung wala akong mabibigay na resource para dito. Kung sa web siya, kasi meron kaming dedicated na server team, sila na yung gumagawa para doon. So sila yung pinaka may alam doon. Pero kung sa client naman, kailangan nyo lang kasi lagi nyo i-double check yung nyo, yung mga pumapasok na input also, pwede kayong gumawa ng custom na objects. Like for example, meron kang integer. Yung integer mo, pwede kang gumawa ng sabi natin custom int. And then yung custom int na yon, yung actual value niya, hindi mo maintindihan. So kunwari, yung actual value niya is 2, pero dun sa custom int mo, ang laman niya, sabi natin, 5. So in case na kunwari, gumamit sila ng mga cheat software, hanapin nila yung 5 na value doon sa ating app, hindi nila makikita yon kasi yung naka-store na value, hinapin nila yung 2 na variable, pero yung naka-store sa memory is 5, hindi nila makikita. So, pwede lang ma-edit doon is yung yung visual. So, ingat na lang siguro doon. Pagka sa visual ka, nakabase ng mga values mo, doon ka mas ma-attack. So, dapat lagi kang meron ka laging data structure na doon mo binabasa at sinesave yung mga variables mo. Yung display, hayaan nyo silang display lang. Huwag nyo silang gamitin as input. Unless, kunwari, para sila sa player name, tapos kung ano pang mga input na ilalagay. Pero, tapos, lagi nyo silang i-validate. Yun. Sana nakatulong yon. Okay. So, next question. Any advice for people who want to pursue that kind of passion, sir? So, sa game dev, so, I guess, mag-code ka lang. Create games. Start small. Tapusin mo yung ginawa mong game. Tapos, siguro, pag kami ginagawa ka, ipakita mo rin sa ibang tao para at least sila is magbibigay sila ng feedback sa'yo. Tapos, ikaw, patuloy mong i-improve yung game mo. Ayun. So, basta lagi lang gawa lang ng gawa. Ayun. In terms of game performance optimization, what are the standard procedures through code to make sure that games run smoothly on any computer hardware? Okay. Okay, so ito medyo mabigat na tanong. Okay, so games performance optimization sa code. Okay, so Tristan, do you use engine? Any game engine? UE and Unity. Okay. So at least naman yan, standard na. Okay, for this we only our studio only uses Unity. Yeah, so maybe I'll just give some tips for Unity na lang. Okay, so for game performance, okay, so number 1, do not instantiate or do not create objects unless you really need it. Okay, so number 1, create pool system. And then always check the profiler. Like, okay, like there's a problem with C#, which is the garbage collector. Okay, so if you keep on creating new objects, then and let's say your garbage collector is tipped, then it will flash so many memory, and then it will cause just a lag. So just create objects when needed, create pool, and then for, let's say, for graphics, for as much as possible, use if you can use low res, use low res. If not, use other techniques, like let's say if you are making 3D, let's say Make sure your LODs are properly set up, your MIP maps, etc. And just but you're only well, actually what you really need to do is always profile your game. Keep on profiling. That's the best tip that I can give you, because you really won't know if there's a problem or not. But sometimes, okay, you're thinking that, okay, my game is too massive. Maybe it will lag on the hardware, or let's say low-end hardware. But yeah, so just profile it and see if you have the issue. If there's no issue, then okay, no need to fix. And also, you only need to fix the, let's say, top 20% of your issue. Yeah, so you don't need to fix everything. And maybe, let's say, there's just one big issue, and that if you fix it, it will fix 80% of your problem. Maybe there's that also. Yeah, and the profiler will help you determining that, and it will also help you fix the problem. And also, do not rely on the editor too much for the game performance, because maybe your edit or your development machine is too powerful than the targeted devices. Yeah, so profile it on the actual device that you're targeting. Yep. So yeah, that's it. Or any other question?
It looks like we've covered all of our questions, sir. Thank you po. Thank you for answering all of our questions, Mr. Sansibuche. I am positive that this has enlightened our attendees further into the topic. To express our gratitude to our speaker, we present this certificate of recognition. This certificate of recognition is hereby presented to Jeffrey Sansibuche for sharing his precious time and expertise as our resource speaker on the webinar entitled Code Like a Professional, Code Etiquette in Game Development, given this 19th of May 2022 at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines College of Engineering, signed by our Course Advisor, Dr. Arvin R. De La Cruz, Dean of College of Engineering, Dr. Remedios D. Ado, and our Chairperson of the Computer Engineering Department, Engineer Julius S. Cancino. For our dear participants, we will be having a short quiz where the top 2 scorers will receive a prize of 100 pesos. Just click on the link on our chat box below. Yan. Shinare po ni Aleta De Mano. Guys, you can join the quiz. Just click on the link below. Thank you. Share screen natin. Awesome. Yan. Yan, dami nang nagjo-join, guys. Yun lang, sali lang kayo.
Kami rin sasali.
Mananalo na po kayo niyan, sir. Meron pa ba? Ayan, meron pa. Madagdag pa sila. Lang. Okay na ba guys? Wala na bang sasali? Yan, nakadagdag pa sila.
Pa? Pa?
Okay, so wala na atang sasali. Start ko na yung quiz. Ayun, meron pa umabol. 50 lang guys. Okay, start ko na to ah. No. Ang daming nakasagot. 32. Mukhang nakikinig kayong lahat ah. Next. Oops, may konting din ako. Daming nakatama. Next question. Sino ang nangunguna? Si Earl. Dami din nakatama doon. Konti lang kasagot. Bakit? Oh, mukhang may mananalo na. Dami yung mga sagot. Thumbs up, guys. Para po dun sa mga nanalo. Ay, isa lang pala. Pa-screenshot po na kayo po yung nag-number 1 sa quiz. Thank you. And I hope na nag-enjoy kayo sa webinar na ito. To formally close this event, our head webinar organizer, Aleta K. Dimano, will say a few things. Kindly open your camera and mic, Ms. Dimano.
Hi, thank you. So for the winners of our meeting activity, you may send me a message on our Zoom meeting so that I can give you the rewards that you're entitled to. Also, to begin my speech, I would like to extend my appreciation to everyone here in this webinar, and especially to the Co-ops Philippines for taking time out of their busy schedule. Thank you so much for that informative presentation, Mr. Sansibuche and Ms. Vera. I'm sure everybody has learned how to make good coding habits now. I, for one, would change the way I code based on the solid principle. And I would love to apply to Co-op Philippines someday, and I know our participants feel the same way. Although there were some technical problems at the start of the seminar, it got back on its feet. And thank you for our webinar organizers, Angelo, Hector, and Matthew. And to our webinar advisor, Dr. Arvin de la Cruz, for making this webinar possible and streaming it online on both YouTube and Facebook. To our 125 participants, I hope your thirst for knowledge was satisfied. Again, thank you everyone and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ms. Aleta K. Demano. Before we end this meeting, we will have a short photo op. Turning your cameras on is recommended. Please. Yan. Picture tayo. Teka. Pa-open po ng camera. Yan. Yan. Okay. Okay. Smile, guys. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next batch. Wait. Smile, guys. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Last slide. Thank you po. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and a special thanks to Co-ops Philippines and Mr. Sansi Buchel. Do not forget to fill out our evaluation form. The link is posted on our Zoom chat box. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
You all. We'll see each other on our next sessions, our webinar series 03 and 04 on Saturday morning session. And I think it's a morning session or afternoon. And then the other one is in the evening session on Saturday, May 21. Okay, again, thank you. Thank you, Sir Jeff, and thank you, Co-ops. Kay Miss Vera, thank you. I will now end the sessions. Thank you to all.